but I don't go out there anymore. I used to go out every day and I would sketch.
How much detail there is on there.
It's editing because you want to just, I wanted to get only what was the essence, sort of like, not exactly, but like Giacometti's sculptures of man. I was trying to do that with the mountain. Because the mountain has so many crevices, you can't do that. So, because water is very important wherever, and this is the Rio Chama and the Rio Grande, which meet. But, you know, like this mountain here that I've put, I mean, I don't mean to improve on nature, but I have to make a composition. And it's easier for me than using a land mover. So I can put this right here as a cliff and bring the colors here that I'm going to bring here, and then here, and then here, and then bring it up to the sky, because your eye has got to travel. And so when I paint, it's like weaving. And I have to weave the colors in. And on this side, I started with pinks. I brought light pink in the mountain, pink over here. I might not have every color, but you're here and you say, oh, where's my eye gonna go? What am I doing? Oh, I could jump here, or I could jump here. And it's a lot of jumping around. And then going way up there and then coming way down. So your eye travels, and it's like, there's a painter, his painting was the first painting at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and it was called Trip to, I'll say Brazil, that isn't its name, and it was when stereoscopic cameras were used, and he said, his name is Frederick Edwin Church, and he's from the 18-something. And he said, whenever you do a painting, you have to take the viewer on a trip. And that stuck in my head like it was the biggest piece of information I ever got. And it was, take the viewer on a journey. So it's not, you really, I want you to travel, and I want you to say, can I get to that mountain, you know? Because I love the mountains of New Mexico. When I came to New Mexico long before I moved there, because I'm an Illinois kid. I lived in Morton Grove. I lived in Evanston, you know. I just had a good time. I grew up across from River Park in Chicago. So I knew green. But then when I think I was about 27 and had 3 kids or 2 kids at that point, and every summer, the minute school was out, the car had to be packed so we could start our journey. And I was the navigator, and my husband was the pilot, and the kids were the baggage. And we just drove across the country, but we always went west because I had a brother that lived in California. So all the trips were planned like that. The only time we went north was, east I mean, was for the moon landing. And other than that, every trip. Well, one of the trips, I wanted to see Santa Fe. And we arrived in the evening, and it was very dark, and we got on a tiny little bridge that was only big enough for an old car. And of course, this was, I told you how you know, and I'm 81 now, so you know how old, how many years ago this was. Well, there was a cow in the middle of the night on this bridge. And we waited till the cow decided that they were done. And then we went across. We were in San Juan Pueblo. I thought I had gone to heaven. That's all I could tell you, the adobe houses. And then when morning came, we went up to the Hyde Park Forest. I said, I want to stay here. And he said, but we've got to go to your brother. I said, okay, we will, but we're coming back. I said, I want to move here. My late husband was a city boy. He thought if you camped, you had to camp near a motel so you could go take your shower and use the private facilities. He was not for the outdoors. But life changes, life happens, and in 1985, I had enough life changes happen that I could move to New Mexico all by myself and do whatever I wanted because the kids were all grown up. And I felt I didn't have responsibility. But that's a myth. If you have one child or you have 100 children, it never ends. And then they start having children, oh my God. So, and I can tell you that honestly because I have 4 children, 8 grandchildren, and are you ready? 17 great-grandchildren. Thank you. I am a lucky woman, and I know all their names. Don't ask me their birthdays, but I can tell you their names, and they're hard names. But this painting was done last August, or April, I'm not sure, it was an A letter. So, and it's all about how I feel.
It was an April one.
April, okay.
I signed it in May.
Okay. And a painting has its own life, and a painting tells me what wants to happen. I could start out with an idea, because I love my garden. And before I go up in the studio, I usually go out in the garden. And we have a long season that there's always something growing. So I'll water the plants. We do it in winter because we're 8,000 feet up high, and we have very thin air. So you go up to, I water the plants. And then I go up to my studio. My studio is on the 2nd floor of my house. I'm still in my pajamas. I haven't had my coffee yet. I'll take a cup of coffee up to the studio with me, and I start watering my plants because I'm a watercolorist. And each one of my trays are a different set of colors, including one tray that's all luminous stuff and all different kind of things. And as I'm watering, because when I went to sleep last night, I had an idea of what I was going to paint. But then I start watering the paints. And when the paints get watered, all of a sudden one of the colors pops up. It's a magenta, it's a bright red with a blue in it. I say, that's what the painting's going to be. Forget about what I was thinking. I'll do that one another time. And that's how they grow. And they take on their own life. A painting can be done quickly. A painting can take a long time. I'll be done with something, or I think I'm done. I put it against a wall. I say, I don't know what it is. And I'll leave it up there and I'll work on something else. And then, one eye is looking at that every time I go up in the studio, and then I'll say, oh my God, that's what it needed. And then it goes to the frame. And, but I love New Mexico as much as I loved River Park in Chicago. And it's simple, There's a simplicity to the mountains. The mountains are friendly. They're not like the big mountains in Colorado, gorgeous stuff. I absolutely adore them. But you never feel overwhelmed. And the colors are soft. And when you're like me, you find out, like the shock of my life 27 years ago, when I first moved there permanently, was I went out to Abiquiu, New Mexico, and there was landscape that George O'Keeffe had done. And lo and behold, I said, she was a realist. I thought she invented. I thought she made up peatland that was all in her head. And I couldn't believe it, because when you grow up in Chicago, you grow up at the Art Institute. And I couldn't believe what I saw. And so, and I came across Abiquiu by mistake, because when I first got started, I had a place that I could close the door. It was just my work, and I could sleep there, eat there, you know, do everything. And I would just lock the door and go out for a ride. And one day, riding, and then here's these mountains. They're striped. This is sort of white, this is sort of pink, this one's a tan, and then there's pink again, and then there's this burnt orange, and it's all the minerals in the land, and I'm in awe. I am a dumbstruck woman. I cannot believe what I've seen. And I feel the same way 27 years later. I get excited by the little tiny flower on a plant that's on the ground. Maybe because there's such a scarcity, except in my garden, that of the flowers, and everything seems so precious and so dear. And I thank you for listening to me.